Hello and welcome to LinkedIn Ads Insider episode number 4. And this month we're talking about account-based marketing, ABM. Mark, let's start off by just defining what we mean by ABM and specifically how it relates to LinkedIn and LinkedIn ads.
Yeah, sure. So for me, how I always explain ABM is basically it's just good marketing, but to a defined target audience. Because when you think about good marketing, what you need is a clear understanding of who you're going after, who you're targeting, your ICP. And then you want to know what's important to them, what are their pain points, what they're looking to achieve, what are the jobs they need to get done. And then the content you create, you want to be personalized to them. So wherever they're seeing this content, it stands out, it's relevant to them, it's valuable to them. So all of those principles are just good marketing. The main difference with ABM is that you have a defined target list of who you're going after. So you've actually listed out, here are the accounts that we want to target. And broadly, there are 3 different types of ABM because most people think ABM just means, okay, I'm just going after 5 people with highly personalized content, all our eggs in one basket. But there are 3 different types of ABM. You have that one-to-one ABM, which is kind of thoroughbred ABM. And that is when you're going after just a few different accounts and then usually multiple decision makers within those accounts. Then you have one-to-few ABM, which is you're going after a few different additional accounts on top of there. So maybe up to 100 different companies. And then you have one-to-many, which can be that you're targeting thousands of companies at once. And it's really quite broad, but you still have that list of defined companies that you're going after.
Yeah, I think that's the big difference to land kind of early on in this show. It's all about the list.
Yeah.
It's all about having a list of companies and saying these are the companies we're going to focus on rather than what can often happen with paid media, which is you think, well, we're going to reach everyone that we can reach. Everyone that kind of broadly speaking fits the type of people we might want to sell to at some point in the future. We're going to show those people ads. And, maybe we can talk now about why it's better not to do that, right? And maybe we start with LinkedIn's targeting.
Yeah, sure. So one reason why we're big fans of ABM on LinkedIn is that the native targeting on LinkedIn isn't reliable when it comes to industries, even company revenue, those sorts of firmographic informations that you can use. And that's because when people set up their profiles, it's usually kind of like a junior in the marketing team might have set up the company page. That might have been a long time ago. So the industry they selected might actually not be a good match to actually what that company does.
Yeah.
Also, you are limited on LinkedIn to the industries that you can choose. So quite often you'll have a company which has a specific niche you want to go after, but the industry that they've categorized themselves as is actually quite broad. So if you just targeted that industry, you end up targeting and running ads to a load of companies that aren't actually relevant to your product you're offering. And what that means is you're wasting then a lot of your budget, which is not what you want to do.
I think the other issue with the native targeting is you end up just reaching far too many people. Something we talked about in our measurement episode is audience penetration and how important it is that you're aiming for, at least 50% audience penetration. For those people that haven't listened to that, what that metric really means is that you are saturating that audience enough to build up the mental availability that you need to influence their buyer behavior.
Yeah.
And when you're using native targeting, you can end up with a poorly defined audience that might be bigger than you need, and that audience penetration metric as a result just becomes less meaningful because you might be reaching that audience, but is that audience right?
Yeah.
And that's what you need to know. And I think that's what makes ABM on LinkedIn really powerful. Certainly why we're doing more of it now with our clients is that you pick the companies that really matter, the companies that you want to sell to, and you focus on saturating that market.
Yeah.
Making sure that those people know, like, and trust you at the expense of others.
Yeah.
And I just think that's a really sensible mindset, especially now as we're moving away from the kind of growth at all costs, let's raise a load of money and spend as much money on ads as we can, towards, a context where marketing teams are much more accountable. And they're responsible for pipeline and they need to show their impact. And I think ABM is a better way of doing that than the kind of typical paid media approach.
Yeah, I totally agree. Whenever we're working with a new client now, I always recommend have a narrow ICP to start with because we audit a lot of LinkedIn accounts and quite often you'll see that they've got a relative budget of like 5 to 10K per month, but their audience size is in the millions. So you'll just be scratching the surface of that audience. What you really want is a narrow ICP so that you can, as you say, get that audience penetration up, hit them at a high frequency. But also what's really important then is if you have quite a narrow ICP, you can really tailor the creative to that audience. And that means that when they see it in the feed, it's going to be highly relevant to them. So it's going to stand out, it's going to stop them in the scroll and have a bigger impact. Whereas if you're just trying to target everyone, the messages you put out there are just going to be too generic, that it's just going to kind of disappear into the sea of sameness that we usually see from ads from B2B companies on LinkedIn. And they'll see that in the feed and people will just scroll on by really quickly.
Absolutely, yeah. We're going to talk about creative more later, but it all is all about relevance.
Yeah.
If you're going to run a targeted campaign, do not hedge your bets.
Yeah.
Like go all in on targeting those people, make it abundantly clear in the creative that this is for them and no one else.
Yeah.
And you're more likely to get their attention. Right, so with that kind of primer into ABM, shall we jump into the kind of step-by-steps and how you do this really well?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, step number one, ground zero, is you need to have your strategy. You need to know, okay, this is our intention. We want to go after this audience. This is the kind of service we want to sell. So you know exactly what you're aiming for and that kind of fundamental strategy that underpins everything. And then it's a case of building that list. And the most, this can be quite difficult for some companies because they have in B2B quite a kind of niche target market that they go after. That it's not easy just to go to a data provider and say, okay, I want 100 or 1,000 companies within this industry or this category. So that can be quite a difficult starting point. I mean, the way that we recommend it to approach it is that sometimes if the marketing department speaks to the sales team, they already have this list because it's forming part of their outbound strategy. So they could kind of collaborate with sales and build this wish list together that they're both going after. That's an ideal. Another way is that there is data that you can rent. You can go to data companies and you can get a list of the companies you want to target, or you could build that list in Sales Navigator so you can get hold of it that way. More recently, one way that we've been building a list is in Clay.
Yeah.
So using the find companies capability within Clay, where it's just got so many more filters that you can use in there than you can, say, natively on LinkedIn. So you can do it based on the usual firmographics, so like industry, company size, revenue, that side of things. You can also narrow it down within Clay to B2B companies. It has this like AI filter that you can use, which is really helpful. But the feature in there that I found really good is its lookalike builder. So you can feed into it up to 10 different LinkedIn company page profile URLs. So if you take your best customers and you say, okay, these are perfect ICP fit for us, put in their company page URLs up to 10 into Clay, then it will build that lookalike audience. And you'll have a preview then of 50 companies that you can go through and just sense check that, okay, this looks like a good match. You can make some exclusions then if you need to, and then go ahead and build your list to whatever size that you want. You can limit it on size as well, depending on the budget you have eventually to run your ads. So I found that to be, I mean, this is what we do for ourselves now.
Yeah.
I found that to be a really effective way to build your ABM list. I mean, for ourselves, the way we've approached this recently is we've built that cold list within Clay and also taken the list from sales, from their HubSpot, and kind of combined them together, deduped them, and that's our list now that we're going to use. So that's step two, is to build that list.
Yeah. It's worth repeating. I said this earlier, but I think it's worth repeating. The list is the bedrock.
Yeah.
Like if the list isn't good and the quality of the companies in it isn't accurate,
Yeah.
then you're setting yourself up for failure. I think in the past, people have kind of seen the list or buying contact data as kind of fairly low priority. Just like find the cheapest provider and they'll give you like a few thousand contacts.
Yeah.
But I think list building is a real skill and it needs to be prioritized. And certainly what you see from like more sophisticated go-to-market teams now is I have people, that's their job.
Yeah.
Is like literally building the company list and making sure they're really up to date and making sure all the integrations are connected so that the list can be kind of drawn into whatever platform that you're using, ad platforms, reporting platforms, CRM. So it should be prioritized.
Yeah. Yeah, what I'll add into this as well is that my preference is just to use a company list rather than building out a contact list. Because when you use a company list, you can then target multiple members of the decision-making unit within those companies rather than one individual contact. Also, it just lasts a bit longer then as a list you can use. People move jobs so often that if you're using a contact list kind of 2 months down the line, it's out of date.
Yeah.
So I prefer to use a company list and that's the direction that I go in.
Yeah, and it's worth clarifying. The way that works in LinkedIn is you upload your company list to LinkedIn and then you use LinkedIn's kind of native targeting almost as a filter
Yeah.
to find the right people in the right roles. So rather than having contact data for, Mark and George at Winbox, you just have Winbox uploaded as a company list, and then you filter for decision makers.
Yeah.
And that means that you're not targeting kind of everyone that's a good fit within that company, because that's not right, are they? You're just
No.
picking the right companies and the right people within them.
Yeah, that's it. So now you've got your strategy, you've got your list, then really you dive into your creative.
Yeah.
And for me, that starts with creating this kind of messaging guide that underpins the content you're going to go after. And this is something more so that you take care of. So I don't know if you want to tell us a bit about your approach there for the messaging guide for this list.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, in terms of how we think about this, it always starts with the messaging. And every campaign that we create, I create a fresh messaging doc for it. And the reason for that is kind of narrative consistency. Like, I need to know that on every piece of creative, we're telling a consistent story, and that story is really clear from the kind of absolute top of funnel awareness building stuff through to the demo page for the the landing page for the demo. It needs to be one story for one person.
Yeah.
And the only way that you get that kind of clarity is just to write the story down.
Yeah.
The way I structure that is dead simple. Who are we targeting? What are their kind of key goals? What are the things that are in their way? How does the product help? What benefits does that give them? And what are the proof points we're going to use to prove that's all true?
Yeah.
Just a couple of bullet points for each. But then I can just know that, like, everything that I make from that point on is just hammering the same story.
Yeah.
And this comes back to that point about market saturation and audience penetration. It will feel repetitive. It should feel repetitive. That's how you know you're doing it right. When you look at like wildly successful marketing campaigns, they're usually campaigns that have said the same thing over and over again for years.
Yeah.
And I think especially if you're kind of targeting a narrow audience, what your creative needs to do is find lots of different ways of saying the same thing and keeping it interesting. So step one, messaging doc. After that, and we're talking about LinkedIn here specifically, I want to find different ways of telling that story using different formats.
Yeah.
We love video ads because we know that they're one of the best ways to kind of educate an audience while keeping them on the platform, which is ultimately what you want to do. So I will, come up with 3 ideas, say, for talking head style interview. Just outline like the topics that I want to hit. Usually the structure that I use for like pretty much all of our video content and ads is pain point. Part 1, like hit them with the pain point. Part 2, detail. So why that pain point matters. Part 3, the payoff. So how the product helps. So I just outline like what are my 3 topics for the videos and the 3 kind of like 3-part structure for each of them. If it's a software product, often I'm coming up with a bunch of ideas for video content that shows people using the product. We really like Loom videos for this. And then, yes, the same story again, but in the form of single image ads. The same story again, but in the form of carousels.
Yeah.
But it's all pointing in the same direction. It's all saying the same thing. I mentioned earlier the importance of relevance, like the advantage of a really targeted, really focused approach is that you can have a kind of one-to-one match between the audience and what you're talking about in the creative. And I would say, like, never hedge your bets. Like, never try and say one thing to 2 different people or 3 different groups. Like, say, if you're going after a specific job title, if you're targeting like demand gen managers, have that like in the ad creative. Demand gen managers, are you tired of X? You might not use that exact copy, but you need that level of clarity. They need to know that this is just for them. Sometimes that results in ad copy that might look a little bit weird, but the goal here is to get their attention.
Yeah.
And only their attention, and they are the priority. So I think whatever you can do to make it more relevant to them, do that. And then the final thing is just, the way I always think about structuring ad creative is I have the kind of demand gen layer of the campaign, which is basically what I've just been talking about. And that's about landing that message, landing that story, finding different ways of telling that story. The demand capture layer is about trying to convert, right? That awareness that you've built up. And there are different ways you can do this. If you're targeting a really narrowly defined audience, have a personalized landing page that you can drive traffic to. And it's like, again, it's just for them. Don't drive that traffic to your like generic landing page for demos because it's not relevant enough. Like tailor a landing page just to them. Likewise, conversation ads, really personalized copy that's like speaking to their specific pains and their job role. Yeah, they're two of our kind of like most standard plays for that.
Yeah. So we've got step 1 is you create that strategy.
Yes.
Step 2 is you create that all important list, like you said, which is the bedrock. Step 3, we have that messaging guide. So we know the narrative we want to get across the campaign.
Yeah.
And then step 4 is you build that media plan that you touched upon. So it's what different formats are we going to use to communicate this message? What do we need from creative?
Yeah.
And then step 5 is what you went through there. We dive into that creative, building the demand generation layer and the demand capture layer. Something that people often think about when they think ABM is that the content has to be ultra personalized. So it needs to be speaking almost to an individual on an individual basis. I think the type of ABM that you do will be dependent on how then personalized the content is.
Yeah.
Like if you're doing one-to-one ABM, so you're only going after a few companies, you can afford then to have highly personalized content.
Yeah.
So you can create a piece of content for the finance department, for the sales department, for the different kind of members that make up the decision-making unit. One to few, you can be less personalized, and obviously one to many is a lot of companies you're going after then. So the personalization has to be like less again.
Yeah.
How do you approach this from the creative standpoint in terms of your ABM strategy and your ABM campaign and how much you personalize that content?
Yeah. I guess it's worth drawing a distinction between kind of personalization and just having a really targeted, focused message. So the way I'd think about it is that, like, no matter what type of ABM you're doing, it should be a very targeted, specific message that's tapping into the things that you know that list is going to pay attention to. So that will be like the pain points you know they have, the outcomes you know they want, and their job title. Like those 3 things basically give you enough, right? If you are then working like a much, much smaller list, say you've got like 50 companies, something we've done in the past is like run ads like one-to-one targeted, or this would be really personalization, one-to-one personalized ads featuring the branding of that company.
Yeah.
Because that's a good way of getting their attention. I think there are risks to this. One of the risks is that even with a company list, the wrong person can see that ad. And, you know, when you're putting another company's branding in the feed as an ad, there are risks to that. So it's not something that we do a lot of. It's not our like default ABM play. Our default ABM play is to have the list, really understand the people within that list and kind of target their attributes. Rather than run like one-to-one personalized ads featuring their branding. But obviously if a client came to us and said, we only want to run ads to these 20 companies, I'd probably say with a list that small, let's try that level of personalization. You also have personalization tags now on LinkedIn that you can put in the copy. So you can absolutely personalize ads to people's names, job titles, and their company name. In the ad copy, which is sensible. Like, why wouldn't you do that? As always with these things, test it. You know, we've seen improved click-through rates. Some others have seen improved click-through rates. I've also been on LinkedIn and seen that bugging out and seen first name tags appearing in the news feed.
You definitely don't want to do that.
Which, you know, that sucks. And it probably wasn't the fault of that advertiser, I don't think. I think it was the personalization platform that went haywire on that day.
Didn't we see LinkedIn do this themselves with their own ad?
Really?
I think Alex screenshotted it where it was actually all LinkedIn's ad and it said, I think it was a spotlight ad, and it said first name, and then so it can even happen to the platform itself that you're advertising on.
If LinkedIn's paid media team is watching this and you want to get a free audit, get in touch.
I think it was what you say, it was a bug. Well, you would hope so anyway.
But that's how I think about personalization. What I will say is that it's not like, I think what people have in their head, again, and this comes back to like it can only be a very, very small list and everything has to be one-to-one personalized. That isn't the kind of qualifying criteria of ABM.
No.
Like it just has to be really, really targeted, and you need to have a defined list, and that list can be, you know, a couple of thousand companies. But it just needs to be, your mindset needs to be that we are all about a very targeted and focused approach to messaging and creative.
That's it. Okay, let's move on to the last step then, which is measurement and success. So the way I view success in measurement for ABM is the same with any LinkedIn ads campaign, really, is that are you reaching the right people in the feed? Are they then stopping to engage with that content? Are they clicking through and showing signals of intent? And then overall, is it influencing pipeline? And are we seeing that real impact on your pipeline from your LinkedIn ads? I think also with ABM, because you're going after that target list, you want to see, okay, of this list of kind of dream accounts that we're going after, how many of them have we reached? How many of them are engaging and trying to increase that over time as well?
Yeah.
So I guess there you're looking at audience penetration, but you're also just looking at in the companies tab where you can filter by, okay, the companies that have at least medium engagement level, how many of those 1,000 companies that we're targeting have at least medium engagement and trying to move that up as well. And I think that what you get with your ABM strategy then is that hopefully you've got tight collaboration with sales because you both kind of built this list together, and you can feed that information into sales, and you can say, okay, we've got this list of highly relevant companies. Here's all of the ones that are engaging. You now need to go out there, do your outbound thing, not in a creepy way to say that, hey, we've seen that you've been engaged with our ads, kind of Big Brother is watching you. People don't like that, but just in a subtle way, connecting in with your ICP at those companies and just seeing if it's the right time to have that conversation about your solution. So utilizing that first party intent data from within the platform as well.
Yeah. I think reach is really interesting because I think that the nature of those are kind of reach metrics changes when you're targeting a list.
Yeah.
Because when you're just doing kind of broad targeting, often just reporting on like how many people have seen these ads. Whereas as we talked about at the start of the show, reach, when you're like targeting a defined list, is much more about like, are we saturating this audience enough so that we can feel really confident that they're, they know, like, and trust us, as we often say. So it's a kind of like it's a subtle shift, but I think it's a really meaningful one.
Yeah, I agree. So my closing comments on ABM really for LinkedIn is that I really like it as an approach. Often because the targeting on LinkedIn natively isn't great.
Yeah.
If you're just targeted by industry and those kind of firmographic details, you will end up leaking quite far away from your ICP. So you end up wasting a lot of ad budget, which is obviously not what we want to do.
Yeah.
I think by having this company list and uploading that company list into Campaign Manager, you want to target, you have much more accuracy then in your ads hitting the right people.
Yeah.
And as you say, you can saturate that audience then over time so that when they're in market for a solution like yours, they come to you and you're the go-to provider, which is a big part of how B2B marketing works.
Yeah. I think from my side, it's just about ultimately making the most of your ad spend, and everyone who's running ads on any channel wants to make sure those ads are reaching the right people. And this type of approach just gives you, I suppose, peace of mind that like you are reaching the people that you ultimately most want to sell to. But also, I think it just forces like a better mindset around like campaign strategy and creative and messaging, which is like we're going to tailor our comms specifically to what we know those people are interested in.
Yeah.
So I think in many ways it like enforces more discipline like across the whole campaign in terms of like how you plan it out, what you put out there, how you report on performance. And so I think it's a really powerful approach. And, we are shifting our own marketing to this strategy now for exactly that reason, because we were looking at our ad spend and saying, how can we squeeze as much value out of this as possible, and shifting to an approach which means that we are targeting not everyone who runs LinkedIn ads, but everyone who spends, $5,000 and up on LinkedIn ads, which is ultimately the type of companies we want to work with, means that we put Winbox in front of the people that matter most.
That's it.
Which is what it's all about.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, so that's ABM when it comes to LinkedIn. Would love to hear your approach to how you're using ABM on the platform, how effective you found it. So please do comment down below on this video, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Cheers.